Okay, last video. And this is what I've been trying to get to talk about all this time. Was just them real simple honorifics. Chan, san, kun, sama, dono. We'll start with dono really quick because it's easy to get out of the way. It's what you call mukashi kotoba. Mukashi, if you've ever watched Revolutionary Girl Utena, every episode starts with mukashi mukashi. This means once upon a time, a long time ago. Mukashi actually just means a long time ago. You can even use mukashi to refer to when your parents were kids or when your grandparents were kids, because that's a long time ago to you. It's not historically a long time, but it gets the point across. So, mukashi kotoba. Kotoba means word. So, if you don't understand a word, it is wasurenai kotoba. So if you have any wasurenai kotoba, please ask. So, mukashi no kotoba, dono. The reason I'm bringing up dono is because as Americans, we are principally consumers of Japanese drama, animation, and video games. And a lot of these deal with feudal Japan prior to the 19th century, when Japan was ruled by warlords and the shogunate instead of its emperor. And dono was used to refer to different members of the feudal hierarchy. So you would have the emperor, of course, even if he didn't exercise any true political power at that time, still symbolically stood above all other people. Likewise, the shogun, I should say, since we're trying to speak proper Japanese, it's shogun, was hypothetically a rank below the emperor. Of course, it's fairly common knowledge by this time that the shogun primarily ruled Japan, but beneath him were warring city-states, and I guess these could be compared to kingships in Europe. So, however, these rulers, I can't remember the word for them. We'll get into it. We'll get into samurai vernacular at a later period. A really good manga series I have to recommend is Lone Wolf and Cub. The story is amazing, the art is amazing, the whole thing is amazing, and there's so much to learn about Japanese history and culture, and it's a shame, but I have to say it, most of my Japanese history I learned from reading Lone Wolf and Cub. Anyway, so Dono was used between these rulers and other members of the hierarchy. For example, samurai would refer to his employer as Dono. It basically means your majesty, or your lordship, or your something or other, is the closest equivalent that feudal Europe and the English of feudal Europe, Old English, offers. Dono is no longer used. If you're if you are Christokyo, if you're a Christian, Christokyo, God is not Kami-dono, it is Kami-sama. Likewise, the Princess of Japan is, oh gosh, I don't remember her name. She's referred to as Sama, not Dono, in spite of the fact that she holds a feudal title. That's simply not a word that is in use, but one that you will hear in most period dramas. So, as you hear Kami-sama, Heika-sama, are honorifics used when referring to some exalted figure. And you also use it under certain circumstances. Once again, these are ritualized circumstances. For example, when you're opening a letter, we say, "Dear dare dare dare." In Japanese, instead of "dear so-and-so," they say "so-and-so sama," "dare dare sama," and the letter continues from there. For another example, formal invitations, such as wedding invitations and so forth, the addressee will be written as sama as well on the envelope. Actually, most invitation envelopes come out pre-filled and you only need to include the name and address. And the word sama is printed right on it for you. So, and once again, if you're a customer for any retail establishment, salon, or other service-based establishment, you'll be referred to as okyaku-sama. But also, if you want to be very polite, say you're a student and your Japanese teacher invited you to dinner. So you're a student, you graduated, you have a reunion, your teacher invites you over and introduces you to his wife. So, and of course she would be Tanaka. So, say Tanaka Sensei offered you over to his house. Of course she would be Tanaka Okusan, Mrs. Tanaka. Actually, you would be literally calling her Tanaka's wife, Tanaka Okusan. And it's one of those things where it's actually polite to refer to somebody as their title or profession. For example, you will be calling your teacher Professor Tanaka while you're speaking to him, Tanaka Sensei. And it's perfectly reasonable and not insulting at all to refer to someone as wife. So, excuse me, wife. Sumimasen, okusama. It's perfectly polite and reasonable. But later on, of course, you always thank somebody for their hospitality the next time you meet them. And in that case, you might want to say, give my regards to okusama. In other words, you're being very polite when referring to Professor Tanaka's wife. This is also in a third-person case. So, you needn't, under business circumstances, whether you're talking to your boss or if you're talking to a prospective client beyond the term okusama, which is a ritualistic term,